let's bring in the GOAT, man, the Doc. He's here to join us, and this is the first time we get to talk to the Doc post-draft, post-NFL draft. You got to spam the Doc emojis. All the members drop the Doc face because he's joining the program to break down the 2025 NFL draft class for the Detroit Lions. He covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated, has his own website. You should be already reading. If you're not, turn off all that other garbage and go to Sports Illustrated and check out the Doc. But let's welcome him into the show. What's going on, Doc? How you doing?
It's a beautiful Wednesday. I'm excited to hear what you guys think of the draft. Great questions. Here we go. In less than a week or so, we're going to see these rookies out on the field. Wild times, man. The train never stops. I'm excited. I survived. It was it was basically like working 40 hours in 3 days. It was wild, but here we are, boys. So let's go.
Doc, it's a crazy weekend. All right. New draft class. Of course, in Brad fashion, it's always the names nobody expects, but people are excited about. And I think you started off in the first round. In the draft, right off the rip, a lot of things happened, transpired. Obviously, Shedeur, unlike I predicted, fell way later. And then you had Tyleik Williams drafted to the Detroit Lions, which the thing that we love the pick live, and because we have a video actually that's live on our channel that was posted 3 weeks ago. In Klotz, we broke down him visiting a top 30. It was a top 30 visit with the Lions, and we talked about it. And we all discussed the possibility. Lukas kind of weighed in because he's an Ohio State guy, and we all came to the conclusion, like, this dude would be amazing. And then he comes to the press conference, Doc, and this is why I'm always bringing up questions you ask because you always ask the right ones. Were you going to go after the Lions? And he said the Bills said the same thing that the Lions told him. So that tells me, Doc, that all the people saying it was a reach need to take a chill pill, indulge in some THC, and relax because Tyleik was an excellent pick. But what'd you make of the pick live, and what do you think of it now that we're almost a week removed?
Yeah, it's it would have been interesting to see what would the selection have been had Alim McNeill not gone down, right? They might have targeted an edge rusher, but they filled the need. He's a good football player. I mean, Brad went to the big house. He had opportunities to scout him. He's seen what Tyleik Williams can do. And look, man, the guy is freakishly athletic, can move. He is a run stuffer, and he's got room to grow as a pass rusher. So it's a great pick at 28. I think that when you look at what the Lions need, you are probably, realizing that this draft as a collective helped this football team stay as good as they are. Now, I do have question marks regarding 2025, but the way I encapsulated the whole draft was hope for the future is great. Fear for 2025 is elevated because these are young players you're counting on, and maybe you're going to get immediate impact from two players. And one of them is Tyleik Williams. So I'm very impressed. He's from a blue blood program, and I think he's got the makeup to be a very productive player. And I just think that early on, I think that you guys now realize, being hosts and running a show, defensive tackles aren't sexy. That's just not a sexy pick at 28. You want, the big edge. You want a guy that's going to, light up the conversations. That's not Tyleik Williams. He's just going to come in, handle his business, and run it. And look, the best thing you can say about him is the comp is Alim McNeill. That's a good starting point for a young rookie.
Hey, Doc, I want to throw out there too, because one thing you actually said before the draft, you came on our show every single week, and I remember one thing that you were always saying was, don't be shocked, guys, if Brad Holmes doesn't go edge until later in the draft. And go and behold, I think that's the saying. Is it show and behold? Whatever. I don't know the saying.
Whatever. We get it.
You know the saying. Guess what happened? 6th round was the first time they drafted an edge in the whole draft. And you were telling us the whole time. You're telling the people. I kind of want your thoughts on that, because obviously that's been like kind of the big talking point in the press conferences all week long on 97.1. Everyone's talking to Brad about these edges, and it seems like I don't know if he's feeling pressure, Doc, or I don't know if he's just tired of the questions, or if he's here. It feels weird. It feels like a weird situation. What are your thoughts on him going edge so late, and then kind of the post draft comments constantly back and back and back about the same thing with Brad?
Yeah, no, it's an very interesting discussion. And it might take me a minute here, but I just want to address Super Bowl. Great comment. No, I'm not Albert Breer, but he's my colleague. I met him formerly at the Combine. I've seen him around in training camp and said hi, but I talked to him formally and respected his work and things like that. But guys, remember what he said, okay? He didn't say the Lions were trading Jameson Williams. His quote was, he talks to all the general managers. He talks to Dan Campbell. He talks to everybody. He's got everybody's phone number. And what the talk was, he asked, could you be interested in calling the Lions about Jameson Williams? He said, yeah, because of the fact that why wouldn't you call? Because of the 5th-year option. He doesn't have a long-term contract. So the way people spun it was, okay, Jameson Williams is going to get traded. Maybe calls were made. But did you guys hear the nugget? Brad Holmes tried to trade up 30 times. You think one of those general managers had the gumption and the chutzpah to say, hey, is Jameson Williams available? Look, he's never going to come out publicly and say, I shopped Jameson Williams. Come on, guys. General managers do hide information at times, but 30 times he made calls. Nobody asked about Jameson Williams. So I just think people got just offended at the whole notion, but those conversations happen all the time. And that's kind of what the speculation was, is that, yeah, teams could potentially be looking, and some teams maybe threw it out there and told them, hey, we think it could happen. That doesn't mean it when all Albert does and these reporters is they ask questions and they report back what is said. And then what the reaction is what the reaction is. But he's not trying to get clickbaits. He's been a senior Sports Illustrated writer for nearly a decade, and he's done a great job and covered the NFL for 2 decades. So he's done respectable work, and I'm proud to call him a colleague. So we have a debate. Brad Holmes does not, and here's the deal. Here's something else he's not going to tell the public. It's clear. Everybody now knows it. Ahmed Hassanian is a 6th-round pick who's going to develop in the system. All right. If you draft a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd-round edge rusher, there's no way he doesn't believe that there was one there. He tried to trade up for one. He damn near said 30 times I tried to trade up. What position do you think he was trying to get? So he understands the idea that the team needs an edge. But again, what is tough is that there is an elevated respect for Marcus Davenport. He's the starter. And so the Lions have, whatever you may think of it, they have hope that this is the guy. Now, the edge situation should be talked about because, and where Brad maybe is not as happy, but here's first and foremost, okay? And you can kind of ask the question as a psychologist, why is Brad so defensive about one position? Brad just wants to look at it collectively as a whole and say, hey, respect my decisions, respect my scouts who spend all these hours doing all this work and picking all these guys, and you guys are focused on one position. So I just don't think he delivered the response well, but everybody should be. That's the position. And here's how you encapsulate it. And that's how I introed the question. And so I wish they would have gave me a microphone so the whole world could have blasted it and heard it. I said to Brad at the combine, I said, this is a credit to how you built this roster. We all look. Safety looks good. Linebackers look good. Most of the defensive line looks good. Offensive line looks good. Quarterback is set. Running back, tight end, offensive line. We're good. Where's the weakness? The weakness is where everybody sees it is opposite of Aiden. That's a clear weakness, and you haven't filled it. And he's like, well, we tried to fill it. We got Davenport, and we got now a prospect, but it's still not good enough. And it's okay to say it. It's not good enough. You drafted a guy that's a project. He's at best going to contribute in 2026. He's not going to come in this year and light up and have a James Houston type situation. He's somebody that just started playing football in 2019. Love him. Mediterranean fire, passionate, is going to die on the field for Dan Campbell.
4 sacks.
Great. He's going to be a good football player in the future. So so why is everybody harping on the edge rusher position? Because every single one of us, and Brad goes into, well, it's hard to find, and why is everybody so focused on it? Why are we all focused on it if, people didn't jump on the next question and let us have a conversation with Brad? I would have told him, here's why I'm focused on it. I just watched the Eagles dominate a mobile quarterback in Patrick Mahomes and stop him. We all looked at that and said, holy shit, I like that. I want that. And so what's the position that the Eagles are very strong in? Defensive line. And guess what? Okay. Here's something else that I said on a podcast that also happened. one of your star players, and I'm sure Brad's not listening, Amon-Ra St. Brown, when there was talk of getting Hendrickson and Miles Crosby and Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, he goes on the air and says, man, if we had a stud edge rusher, we don't even need corners. Said that to thousands of people. So the fans are like, yeah, that makes sense. So Brad Holmes doesn't want to hyper-focus on one position because he doesn't want the idea out there that they're one player away. You know how much pressure that is to find one guy? You can't do that. No general manager is going to put that out there. But the fans, and I'm so proud of the fact that he came out and said, man, you guys have been on my ass about this one position because it's your weakest position and you have not yet to fill it. You are gambling. Brad is gambling that Davenport's the guy. And the caveat is he's going to go out there potentially and maybe still get Zadarius Smith or look, bottom line, eventually he's going to have to admit he didn't do enough because he's going to get another edge rusher. There's going to have to be. You are not going into the playoffs with Marcus Davenport and Ahmed Hassanian. That's just not going to happen. So it's a fair conversation, but Brad is not going to publicly say these things. But behind the scenes, he knows. He's like, man, these guys won't stop talking. And I asked them direct questions. The media asked direct questions. And you know how I know they were good questions? Some of the media in the back chirping in and going, oh, why are we talking about this? That's the media's job, is to ask the questions that the Lions don't want to answer. So it was a great weekend for the media, except for the butt kissers in the back.
And Doc, a situation that I don't think has ever been scrutinized because it's always been elite. And a lot of it, ironically, doesn't really have to do with Brad Holmes. It has to do with Bob Quinn, but that offensive line. When you look at how it's been built and how it's been maintained by Brad Holmes and also by adding Penei Sewell, you see he goes into the trenches this year, gets Tate Ratledge, Miles Frazier. My question to you is, going into camp, how does that kind of translate with Christian Mahogany and Graham Glasgow when you're adding two guards that look pretty damn good coming out of college? And you have Graham Glasgow struggle a little bit last year, and Christian Mahogany looked really good against the Bears, but we can't act like he's a for sure lock to be a dude on the offensive line over a 17-game season, 18-game season pretty soon.
Yeah, no, I look at it like for sure Tate Ratledge, stud, and Christian Mahogany are going to be your starting guards. Maybe, there's competition and they stick early with a week or two with Graham Glasgow. But if you draft and you trade up a couple spots for Tate Ratledge, you know what he can bring to the table. I fully expect that the starting rotation is going to be right now Decker on the left side. Left guard will be Ratledge. I expect Frank Ragnow to be the center, Mahogany the right guard, and Penei Sewell. That just looks pretty decent. And yeah, you're still going to have competition with Glasgow and the others, but I still think you can trust Christian Mahogany with a year of off-season work and what he brings to the table. I think more experience should give him the position to be the starting right guard. If you didn't have trust in him, I don't think you let Kevin Zeitler walk. So you go younger. I love what they did in the trenches. Absolutely love it. It sets them up for the future. Miles Frazier also will compete. And also, too, pay attention to this undrafted out of North Dakota State, Mason Miller. 6'7", can play all five spots. Big dude, can potentially be a guy that, the last 6-7 years, the Lions have had at least one undrafted free agent make the team. Could be the lineman. I'm looking forward to minicamp to see how this undrafted free agent looks as well. We're going to see minicamp, I think, next Friday out there at Allen Park. So great opportunity for this offensive line. That, give credit to Brad Holmes. I think that he knows and can identify the maulers on the offensive line.
Let me ask you, Doc, about the Isaac Tesla situation, trading up for him, landing him, and Brad talking about it being his number one, or not number one, his favorite wide receiver. Not the best wide receiver, but his favorite wide receiver. What do you think of the player, where he was selected, and just kind of what they gave up to go get him? It seems to be probably the big conversation, not as much the player, but what they gave up. What'd you make of that pick, and were you surprised at all?
Yeah, real fast with I love O'Toole in the chats. What are you talking about? Brad Holmes tried 30 times to make a trade. What do you think it was for? Guard? Come on, man. They know the position's tough. They know it's hard because, and also he said it, the reason why they couldn't consummate those trades is those teams didn't want to come down. They didn't want to come down that many spots from where they were. So the Lions were the victim of their own success. He knows it's a position of weakness, but all he was saying is give us more time. We're just we're not giving up on the idea of adding edge rushers. It's an important position, guys, and the fans are absolutely right to focus on it. Sacking the quarterback, when we all saw running quarterbacks, you guys remember when they got their ass spanked by Lamar Jackson? You guys remember that when they got their ass beat? It wasn't competitive. Lamar Jackson is going to now play you this year. You're going to face some great talent. So you're going to need some good players. Now, did this football team need a skill position and trade up 32 spots? My goodness. It's hard to look at the value of that and go, wow, a guy that had that production last year. But look, here's the thing. Brad Holmes, I do think, understands what a talented elite wide receiver could turn into. And Tesla, I do think when you turn on the tape and what you hear from the people I asked about the Senior Bowl, they said he dominated the Senior Bowl, like was just every ball his way, caught, blocking, drill work. They said his Senior Bowl, and that's why a certain guy that you're talking to had him in his final mock, Tesla. Maybe not in the right spots, but for the most part, I had in my final mock 2 offensive linemen, 6th-round edge. I had the offensive line and defensive tackle inversed early. But if you followed my mock draft, you kind of had a sense of where the Lions were at. And so I'm very happy with our pre-draft coverage, as we also profiled Tyleik Williams. We profiled Tesla as well. And so a lot of the coverage I was very happy with. Now, you look at this pick. I'm of the opinion, and Brad explained it well. He looks at it, he says, guys, when we look at draft classes as a whole, they're not the same. We don't feel like there's an Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. So he's willing, he's basically saying the talent in the 3rd round, I don't really think I can find steals. So I'm going to find role players and gritty guys and good football players. So he's willing to trade those picks. And look, he can potentially get a comp pick back with the formula that comes out, and he can maneuver with that extra 6th-round pick that he got in this deal and move back up if need be. But I'm not as worried about, I do look at those picks and go, man, if you could just find some guys. And so maybe I do think that his, standards are overstated a little bit in terms of saying, hey, there are only these certain guys you can get. So the reason why people get upset is they view Brad Holmes as a great evaluator, and you get more chances at getting a great football player with more picks. I'm not of the opinion you should have did that, but they didn't feel like there was the edge that was better than Tesla can be at that spot. So it's wild to think about, but I'm excited because they target him. I do think that he's a big-bodied, very fast, very gritty wide receiver, and you naturally assume he's going to take the Tim Patrick job in 2 years. So this year, 5th wide receiver. Short term, this one stings, but in the long term, you got an X receiver I think you can count on.
Hey, Doc, I just want to get your kind of just grade overall the draft in general. I had given it a B+. I think B+ in my opinion, just based off of, like you said, I think you take into account too, like you just said there, maybe the draft class wasn't as deep and as good. So you do have to take that into account as well. That's why I kind of went B+ there. And I think what Brad got out of it was good. And the one of the negatives that I took out of it was that trade. But would love to just get kind of your overall grade on the draft class and see where you feel like from top to bottom how Brad did.
Yeah. No. I looked at it as a whole, and first and foremost, I do want to address, thank you, the chat and everybody that reached out during the draft, said, hey, good questions. Look, I know people say, well, you ask questions for the fans. In the end, because I was sitting in the stands, the thing I always say, I'm a man of the people. I ask questions that also come to my head, because I also know, I feel like as somebody that does content and covers a team and was a fan and a season ticket holder who never saw a win, saw 5 wins maybe in 5 years, it was horrible, that I understand kind of what people want. And also too, there's always going to be debates on what is asked. Certain reporters are going to ask certain things. I'm just going to be direct. And early on, when I took that first year to learn, I said, okay, I know what these guys ask and I know what I want. And the credit that I get is that a lot of the stories that were written also came from my questions. The question to the coach about a comparison was from me. The Buffalo question was from me. So these guys caught on. They said, okay, what Doc asks.
Doc's been cooking. I know you, Doc.
Be relevant and important. Why? Because the other people write it. They may not like the question, but I don't care. My vision has always been, if I think it and I want to ask, I ask it. This draft, professional. I think they got guys that can fill roles. I would give it a B+. I'm happy with it. But again, here's the part that sucks. And here's the part that, got people riled up on the YouTube channel. And the first reaction I had, my first thought was, I'm very hopeful this team can sustain success. Very hopeful. Playoff team gets there. I'm very fearful 2025 may not be the Super Bowl year. They got work to do still. They got to add more talent. I just think that you got rookies. You're not going to expect Miles Frazier, Ahmed, the safety, Dan Jackson. You're not going to expect the wide receiver in the 7th round to have immediate impact. The two immediate impact guys are Ratledge and Tyleik Williams. So basically, you're trusting that the Lions say, hey, we built the Super Bowl team. We got unlucky in 2024. We're going to run it back. They've earned the right to do it. But at the same token, I have a little bit of panic because I have doubts that a healthy Lions team would have competed and beat the Eagles. You may not, and also too, it's not a knock, but realistically, look at the team and the schedule. You may end up being 10-7 or 11-6 and be a wild card team. You may have to go on the road. Do you want to go on the road to Washington this year? No. Do you want to go on the road to Philly? So 15-2 was a prime opportunity to have everything run through the North. So it's at this point in time, I'm a little unsettled because I just have more doubts that the Super Bowl can happen this year. But I have a lot of hope that once the schedule maybe eases up and the Lions maybe are more aggressive in free agency, there's a chance in 26, 27 to have sustained success with some more talent. But this year, it's tough. You got a tough schedule. That's a tough schedule with new coordinators. And sometimes we're all assuming that everything's just going to be perfect, that John Morton's going to be perfect. Kelvin Shepard is going to connect with all the players and everybody's going to stay healthy. It's a little bit tough, but I'd love to be proven wrong. I do think it's a double-digit win team, but there's going to be some times to be wondering about this football team. And also too, the Rams have a good defensive line. The Eagles got Jahad Campbell. That was the only player I didn't want to go to the Eagles. I like the draft that the Eagles had, and the Commanders helped out their offensive line too. So it's a 4-team race, in my opinion, in the NFC. Lions, Eagles, Commanders, and Rams. And let's go. Let's battle it out. Can't wait to see it.
Doc, you kind of just nailed down what you thought about the Lions draft. I'm going to ask you about a pick and then just the rest of the NFC North draft in particular, how you thought the teams did. But when you saw the Bears take Colson Loveland, 10th overall, what was your reaction? Because mine personally, I was like, please don't be a running back. Please don't be a running back. And they drafted a tight end when they already had one and extended one. So what was your reaction to the Colson Loveland pick, but as well as the rest of the NFC North draft?
Yeah, no, I think coming away from it, I look at the Packers and I go, okay, they did all right. They did all right in their draft. They finally got their wide receiver. It felt like some of the drafts were kind of hinted at trying to tackle the Lions. So I like what the Packers were able to do. They got a lot of young players with experience that are on rookie contracts. The Bears, I look at them and I go, all right, you go and you help your head coach and Ben Johnson. I thought that most people felt like Tyler Warren was the better quarterback, the better tight end, but they felt like Loveland was a little bit more versatile, could do more things. I was a little bit like, all right, Ben Johnson's got basically the signal was there. Get his quarterback some help. And they did that. So it's going to be knockout, drag out. It's going to be the division is going to be wild. And the winner, the Lions are not going 6-0 in this division, guaranteed. It's going to be knockout, drag out matchups. And that matchup against the Bears and the matchup against the Vikings and Packers is going to be must watch. The best division in football, the Lions are in it. And the good thing is that the Lions have great preparation and understanding of how to maneuver it all. So the winner of the NFC North is going to be primed for a playoff run. No doubt about it.
Hey, Doc, I want to ask you about the late round picks. I'm intrigued by Dominic Lovett. They took the 3 Georgia players to the 7th round picks, Dan Jackson and Dominic Lovett, the wide receiver. He reminds me a lot. Again, these are 7th round picks, so these are flyers. I mean, we have no idea how it's even going to work out. But it seems like they took Dominic Lovett not only for special teams reasons, but he does kind of fit the build similar to Khalif Raymond. Kind of what they're looking for in a weapon. Could you kind of give your thoughts on Dan Jackson, what they love about him? His story is kind of interesting too. And then Dominic Lovett.
Yeah, no, I liked the intangibles. The 7th round picks, guys, they're gonna make the team. I think they'll make the team, but special teams contributions. I like Dan and the work that he did in the secondary of Georgia. I think that he's a gritty guy. He's a guy that walked on, and he had a great answer when we asked him. The media asked, like, why did you choose to do that? He's like, I wanted to compete and grow in a program that would win. And that's it. I wanted to compete. I wanted to be at the best place, and the best place is Georgia. And he's a guy that's going to work hard. And you can see that he's sneaky fast. He is, I think, a guy that will work hard, sneaky fast. And I think that he provides good depth at the safety spot. So good spot, good pick, good value there. I think that, playing against great competition, Brad Smart, LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, you can't complain when you go to the best colleges and get the best players. That's beautiful. And the wide receiver, I think that he's got, a little bit of an issue with drops, but I think that he'll pick it up and he will grow and develop. His size is good. I think that he made plays for Georgia. So I think that his play will jump off to film reviewers. So I think he'll have a chance to develop as a nice role player that has a chance to fill what Dan Campbell wanted. The Lions wanted to go younger at wide receiver, and they got 2 decent ones that can develop. And that's not a bad spot. That's not a bad spot to enter camp with. Not at all. It's pretty good. I like those picks. I was pretty happy to see, okay, go to Georgia to round out the draft. That program is blue blood. And Brad Holmes said, like, they practice like we do. Like, they run it so that we can go in there and be like, all right, seamless transitions. And that's all you can ask for.
I know you had already talked about a little bit about the offensive line, especially, more Tate Ratledge. Miles Frazier, though, Doc, do you know a reason, or maybe you've had a little research or had conversations with people, maybe how he made it to the 5th round? Because he feels like he should have gone a lot earlier. And when we were doing mocks, I think he actually was a guy that was like 3rd rounds. It felt like majority of the time. Can you talk about a little bit of the kind of if you felt like that was a steal for them in the 5th, and there was like, hey, you can't pass on a guy like this, just sitting there?
Yeah, look, every football player, has some deficiencies, and there's some things that pop up consistency wise with his run blocking skills and things like that. So look, sometimes when you look at football players and you go, all right, what can they bring to the table and how fast? Many people think that Frazier can do a lot of good things. The offense was good at LSU. I thought that the work that he did on tape, when you look at it, it's pretty good. His strength is in pass protection, and he's able to recover when he does get beat. But, look, sometimes, in the National Football League, for whatever reason, it could be the way he interviewed or the way he has the recall during these interviews sometimes may make some teams go, okay, and make them, question a little bit of things. But just the tape indicates that it is a good value pick for the Lions. I think he's going to make some contributions later on in the year. I think that, it's tough when you look at the projections because every team's board is different. So every team could have different needs at different times. But man, I was happy when they got that player. I was like, okay, that's professional. I think that, the part that's interesting with the Lions is they traded up for him too. They when they target a player that they like, they are aggressive to go get them. And it's I see where people say, well, he's supposed to be a day 2 pick and he's a guy that, can be versatile. But sometimes my note here that I put on, and just my early watching of some games, I just think that his lateral movement can be improved a little bit. Some fundamentals can be picked up. And so I think that when the evaluators turned on the tape, they just probably looked at a guy that still has a little bit more work to do to be a consistent starter. And so I think sometimes teams will then just go in other areas. But this is a good, very, like you said, very good value pick, and a guy that working with Hank Fraley and the competitiveness and with these guys around, I think he has a chance to develop.
And with the draft now being commenced, Doc, we see that, okay, the defensive line room is packed and they're not going to be able to keep all these defensive linemen. So if you had to like guesstimate, because obviously camp hasn't started yet, who do you think on that defensive line? And even if you think there's players outside that defensive line, should be watched as, hey, they might not be making it to this 53-man final cut roster by week 1.
Yeah. I fired it up online. People weren't happy. You have to say, and here's the premise of the story. Brad Holmes traded multiple picks for Broderick Martin. Somebody saw something in Broderick Martin. It hasn't worked out so far. They see something in Tesla. They traded multiple picks for Tesla. They made multiple trades to be aggressive. So you have to explore it. Now, the people came back at me with some nonsense like, I do not care, guys. And if you hear me, you guys in the chat can be at the forefront of not doing it. I do not give a flying F what any general manager in the league does. I don't care what any other podcast does. I care what you guys do. I value your work and stuff like that. I do not give a flying F what other bloggers do. I don't care what the newspaper does. I don't give a shit about any other outside newspaper. I don't care about any of that. I care about Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions. So I'm scrutinizing the general manager of the Lions, nobody else, okay, because he is great. And when you have a great individual, you then challenge that great individual to be even greater, okay? He's a good general manager, the best one. I've said it 50 times. But when you make 3-4 small errors, potentially, that's the difference between having a ring right now, as we're talking, and not and being a good football team. It's razor thin, guys. So when you get all defensive and you get all butthurt that Doc says, man, I'm not really happy with that Broderick Martin pick, you flopped on that one. It's not because that selection is weighted differently than Amon-Ra and Aiden and guys that have been productive. Yeah, he hit on a lot of guys in high rounds. In the later rounds is where you make your bones. Last year's draft is starting to be looked at not as great. This year's draft, a little bit challenging, and he's lost a lot of his key generals to other organizations. So Brad Holmes is not above discussion, okay? So you can tell me to go be a general manager, but at the same token, the Lions still do not have a ring. Brad also wanted to puff his chest out after just getting to the playoffs and after a game in which his team choked. So I'm not upset. I like bantering with the general manager. Who doesn't? He has an opinion and we have an opinion, and it's respectful. But at the same token, this general manager is aggressive, and he has also, I think, a propensity to love his own guys. He calls them his children. That can be a weakness. Like, you got to be cutthroat in the National Football League. You got to say, hey, some of these guys cannot be getting these contracts. Like, you could argue Kirby maybe paying a safety that much money could have gave him just a 5th-year option, make him play 2 more years, and then allocate funds to that big, take a swing and do it differently. Now, it's just a difference of philosophy. It's not right or wrong. It's just a question. And so that's the deal. That's the job of the media. My job is not to go there to praise Brad Holmes. I write good things. I write things that I don't like. That's why I'm successful. If I lopped off half of the story, it's not the job you do. So our job is to say, Brad, why'd you do this? And his job is to say, well, you don't know everything about why I made this pick. Well, I do trust the guys that talk to you, that they say that they talk to the general managers and talk to others. So we're not complete. He thinks we're completely in the dark. But guys, if you look behind me, I got 250 books. So I've read the books front and back. I understand football front and back. And now, do I know all the medicals and all that kind of stuff? No, there's information I don't know. But the tape tells a lot. And the tape that you can get from colleges kind of showcases what these guys are about. So, we are in the mindset now that Broderick probably is going to be a guy where he's got to compete with Roy Lopez, DJ Reader, Tyleek Williams. I had, if you're curious, there's a 53-man projection I made. Broderick Martin's not on it.
Doc, let me ask you about the biggest storyline seemed to take over the entire draft. It got to the point where Mel Kiper crashed out live on air over it. Shedeur Sanders sliding all the way to the 5th round, and now he's the number one jersey. He has the number one jersey sales for rookies so far. What'd you make of him sliding, and maybe the reasoning behind it, and why that was such a captivating storyline from a guy who tells stories all the time?
Yeah. I'm gonna release after we're done talking a 10-minute video. I had it at the end of my First Thoughts podcast. This is great, absolutely great for Shedeur Sanders. I predict he's going to be potentially a legend, and here's why. I relate perfectly to that. I think that's the way legends are made. You're disrespected. Again, I don't care about the external reasons why he dropped. He was one of 256 or 252 players selected. What a privilege. You have been given an opportunity to make yourself great. I believe, as a psychologist, putting the doc hat on, this is what makes people great. If he would have been the number 1 or 2 pick, he probably would have just cashed it in and maybe gone the Johnny Manziel route. Now, he's got to focus. He's got to be able to put that hate, put that disrespect in your heart, and that should motivate you to get up every day at 4:30 a.m., work out, watch film, prove all these haters wrong, and who cares where you're drafted? Doesn't matter. Go to work. Tom Brady time, baby. If you want to be great, Tom Brady was drafted 199 in the 6th round. He said, all right, watch this, mofos. And look what he did. This is beautiful. So my headline for that is, this is exactly what Shedeur needs to wake up, get to work, prove the doubters wrong. And I expect if he's got any guts, if he's got any competitive fire, he'll make himself something special. Look out, NFL world, if he's got the guts. Now, I'm predicting he does because I've done it. You know, like I said, the only reason I think I've told you guys this. My dream was not to work in the media at all. I was a healthy psychologist, great clients, helped some athletes get to where they go, some high-profile athletes too. I was happy. Started a podcast, and I was competitive. I said, you know what? I think I can be media. I think I can compete. I think I can become an NFL reporter. I can go right to the top. But, you know, if I had just right out of the gate, 5 podcasts in, gotten 1 million views and all that, and right away to the top, I might have not grinded, but the door was slammed in my face, and I worked hard to say, hey, get there. It took me 6 years. I worked for 5 years without a single penny coming in from the podcast. 5 years. And I emailed people for 2-3 years without a response. But I said, I got a feeling. People, if they know me, will like me. And then in 2019, I struck gold, and then I went balls to the wall ever since. Guys, I think now I can declare for the last 3 to 4 years, every single day, I put out at least one blog, me personally, every day. Christmas, New Year's, holiday, Thanksgiving. Now, some days are heavier, 3, 4, 5. Some days are 1. Some days are just a podcast. But every day for the last 3-4 years, I've put out content every single day. Why? I know there's people younger than me and hungrier than me that can do this, that have advantages over me, but nobody's going to outwork me. Nobody's going to do the job diligently. Why? Because I was told I wasn't good enough. I was told I was just an internet idiot that would never show up. And here I am doing the thing, and 7 years in, great company, great job, have my own podcast, and I'm loving life. So Shedeur, I always want to tie it to Shedeur. If he's got guts, that's how I believe people reach greatness. Tell them they're dirt, disrespect them. If you got guts, prove them wrong. That's the best way to do it. Tell John Maakaron he's shit. See what happens. Greatness happens.
Hey, Doc, I want to circle back here real quick to the announcement right before the draft, day before the draft. Kirby Joseph and his agent, they announced that He got an extension, and then they could put it out there. And then today it drops kind of the whole breakdown of it. Can I kind of get your thought process? I was actually texting you a little bit about it today. Just kind of your initial thoughts on the breakdown of the contract and how you think it will help the Lions in the future with other deals.
Yeah, and then real fast too. Again, I know I don't want to talk about myself, but today and this week, I emailed every major program that the Lions have drafted with. All right, and I got and the blessing is, with my title, people respond within very fast. But they all said, the requests are very high, and we'll get to you. We'll address these things that you've asked. And so I'm getting better. But boy, one of them, big name program, they're not disrespectful, but in essence, let it be known where my ranking is. And that's great. I love that. I told my wife, I said, all right, I know I'm in the door with all these people. Now I got to get myself known by actually telling these people what I'm about, and look for it maybe next week or the week after, looking for some big name interviews. But I'm let's just say tier 2 on the list. And I can imagine where tier 1 lands, but I'm getting there. And I love it. I love those emails that I get back from these guys. Kirby Joseph, man, he earned it. I listen, I could argue. And again, if I were a general manager, I would not be viewed favorably by a lot of the players. I would be viewed as a dick, because I'm more like, I'm taking a swing for a Super Bowl now, and if we F it up, we'll rebuild in 2 or 3 years. A couple guys are not getting paid. I'm not falling in love with every guy and just being like, market contract for you, market contract for you, market contract for you. I ain't doing that. I'm going to be like, listen, you're going to have to take hometown situation here. We're not setting the market for you. Kirby might have been that guy. Jameson would have been that guy. We're like, look, we're not giving you, I'm sorry, we're going to replace you with somebody else. And I would have just do it a little differently, because you don't even have to pay Aiden. There's nobody forcing you to pay Aiden. He can play on his contract, and you could have took his money, Kirby's money, and somebody else's, and gotten Trey Hendrickson right here on this roster. And let's go and I'm going to say, yes, we are taking a swing these next 2 years to go for it. And I don't care. I would put it out there. I'm not, I wouldn't play that kind of game. I'd just be right out there. You're like, yes, I want to win right now for this fan base that's never won. The Lions have never been to the Super Bowl. So I would be a little bit more urgent in that manner. But Kirby, look, he got 9 interceptions. Like, he's physical. The contract is great. You guys laid it out perfectly with the option years. The Lions run the cap beautifully. Now, but guys, the bill is coming, and the bill is in 2026. Panay, Taylor Decker, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, some of those deals start to hit, the big time cap numbers. And so they're going to have to maneuver. The blessing is the cap goes up 25 million. So that's basically a free player every year that you can get, but they're going to have to get creative, and they have been doing it. And I can respect the idea that you pay your own guys. But I can also see that you could do it a little differently, a little bit more shrewd, to bring in some more high-end free agent talent to make a push, 2-3 players that you could bring from the outside. It's just a difference of opinion. It's just a different manner. When the Rams got good, they made the push. They added talent. They brought in Odell Beckham. They brought in Von Miller. They made their push. They brought in external talent. So this Lions team is a little bit different, a little more hesitant on the external side. I get it. It's just a difference of opinion, not right, not wrong. So far, Brad deserves a lot of credit, because the other side of that is these players love playing for the Lions. They're endeared. They work hard. They grind. They practice hard for Dan Campbell. When you pay people, they'll work hard. So there's a benefit to that. There's a lot of good things that Brad Holmes has done. We're talking like minute points here. That's the difference between a Buffalo Bills and Steelers and the Chiefs and the Eagles. There's just a couple small differences that you can look to that might separate. And it's just finite, small minutia. But Brad Holmes, listen, we have to give him more credit for the great work that he's done. We're just nitpicking the fine points to maybe how do you get from being really, really good to being elite. And, I tend to look at quarterback and having more talent, more just across the board, more defensive ends, more high-end Pro Bowl, all-pro talent. Buy it a little bit. I'm more of that mindset. But draft and develop is interesting because Brad said that he's not feeling the draft is as good, and the college prospects are now staying longer because they're getting paid more, which Quinn Ewers is crazy. I think he's the guy, or was it Will Howard? One of those two said, I think I read, was potentially in line to make $6 to $8 million in NIL and is only going to get $800K in the pros. Who the F is advising you? You're an idiot. Take the $8 million, stay in college, get the country club aspect. Who the hell cares if you get drafted in the league? They're paying you $6 million to play college football. Are you crazy? You're going to, who advises someone to take $800K in the National Football League versus $8 million in college? Something is wrong. These athletes should stay 4 or 5 years if that's the kind of money that's being thrown around.
And kind of staying with that Kirby contract, Doc, how do you think it affects directly Brian Branch's future? Because if you're paying Kirby all that money, do you think Brad Holmes is going to be willing to invest that much money into a similar play in Brian Branch, who might not be coming off a 9-interception season, but by the time his contract's due, he's going to have a very good resume, and that's going to be a player I find very hard to replace once he leaves, if that's the case?
Yeah, no, I'm of the opinion maybe he's the one that stays at the expense of J-Mo or Laporta Campbell. I'll be okay with that. If you can find a tight end and another linebacker, I think there's an opportunity that if that's the case, there's opportunities here to finagle it to, the cap isn't real per se for some situations. And the lucky aspect is this cap going up, we're expecting it 20, 25 million a year. It could go up more. The money's flowing in the league. So if Branch, is in that, he won't be market setting. I don't think. It's all going to depend on the other offer. It also just could be simply another team makes the big blockbuster market setting offer and you just say, we don't match it. If Brian Branch gets a little bit more disciplined, has, the same impact now, shores up some tackling issues, minor ones at that. But listen, it's a great problem to have, right? The Lions got a lot of good players and they're going to want to get paid. Some of them, I do think will get a lot of offers. So it's going to be a tough decision, but I do think Branch and Joseph could man that secondary for a long time. And then I think that maybe, I think it would come at the expense of Laporta and Jack Campbell.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.